You're listening to Living Out Loud with my mom, Michele Flamer. Yep, she's a flamer and proud of it. Get ready to learn about queers in your communities doing great things everywhere.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Living Out Loud. Thank you for sitting in with another amazing guest that I have today. Today I'm actually joined by Kado Stewart, Vice President of Programs and Strategy at 1 in 10, an organization serving LGBTQ plus youth here in Arizona, just minutes from where I live. There is something powerful about realizing the work you care about is not distant or abstract. It is happening in your own community, shaping real lives in real time, often quietly but profoundly. Kado is a leader and a strategist devoted to building programs that help young people experience belonging, safety, and possibility as they navigate identity, mental health, and becoming who they are. His work lives at the intersection of systems and humanity, structure and story. And recently, 1 in 10 proudly announced that Kado has been selected as a 2026 Flinn-Brown Foundation Fellow through the Arizona Center for Civic Leadership at the Flinn Foundation. This prestigious fellowship brings together civic-minded leaders across Arizona to deepen policy knowledge, expand peer networks, and strengthen the tools needed to create meaningful, lasting impact in our state. Kado, congratulations on that recognition, and thank you for being here. I am really grateful to have this conversation with you today. Hi.
Thanks. I'm excited to speak with you and share a little about 1 in 10 with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always kind of have this piece where I love hearing a little bit of the origin story, where people came from, because everybody doesn't wake up one morning and go, I can't wait to work for a nonprofit and ask for money every day, and like, this is like my joy. So where do you want to begin in your origin story, like, and the trajectory a little bit of, like, where you started a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in West Bend, Wisconsin, which is a smaller town of, I was there this past week, and I think there was 31,000 people listed on the town population size.
Amazing.
So I grew up in a smaller town in West Bend, Wisconsin. My whole immediate family still lives there. Still a place I'm very connected to. Definitely had a childhood and young personhood of growing up, spending a lot of time outdoors, going fishing, camping, hiking. One of those types of stories where, you come home when the streetlights go off, right? A lot of trust and safety and being able to go out and explore my community and be in the outdoors. And so I lived in Wisconsin until I was a young adult, about 18, 19. And when I turned 18 years old, in the summer of that, I moved up to Alaska for about 3.5, 4 months, and did that for 2 summers. Guided backpacking, kayaking, canoeing, and worked
This
for
is all
the Girl
making
Scouts.
so much sense.
Yeah, worked for the Girl Scouts of Alaska,
Wow.
which is a really tough version of the Girl Scouts, I will just tell you. I worked for the Girl Scouts of Alaska and found so much community there amongst folks who were coming from all over the states and all over the world to work at the Girl Scouts and create a safe space for young folks. And so I did that for a few years, and then also guided professionally at various companies leading outdoor types of experiences until I ended up coming to finish up my bachelor's degree up in Prescott at Prescott College. So that's the quick version of how I came to Arizona. But
Yeah.
I'm 40 now, so when I lived in Wisconsin, definitely was a time where there weren't a lot of folks who were out. There wasn't a lot of acceptance for the LGBTQ community in general. And, I remember when the original Ellen DeGeneres show came on and was canceled, right? I remember being a young person and watching the show and then hearing it was canceled and receiving those messages, right, about what it meant to be LGBT and what might happen if you were.
Yeah.
And so I came from that kind of time frame. While I had a lot of like safety and community around me, the pieces of my identity that I was learning to kind of come to terms with and understand, there wasn't a ton of support.
I mean, just like a lot. I think one thing I would love to just touch on is Arizona in particular right now, because it's kind of a hotbed, for politics. And from where you sit, in this VP slot at 1 in 10, right in downtown Phoenix, I like to tell people that we're a purple state right now. And I think when I lived here 11 years ago, because I moved up to Portland, Oregon for 11 years. When I moved out of Arizona, because I was here for a short time and then moved, it's so vastly different these days. It's not so red as it used to be. How do you feel about, what's sort of happening in politics now? And, I know 1 in 10 has a lot to do with sort of getting these kids up and running and, and feeling safe, obviously. But where do you,
Yeah.
yeah, just
It's a
share
great
like any
question.
of your
Yeah, and
thoughts.
the political landscape has definitely changed over the years. 1 in 10 is a 501c3 nonprofit, so we're a nonpartisan organization. We don't support specific candidates or anything like that, but we do at times have opportunities for young people to go and speak with policymakers, elected officials, to share their own experiences and the impact that laws will and won't have on them, right? So
Yeah.
I've definitely seen a shift in the years that I've been here. I graduated from Prescott College in 2008 and then moved down to Phoenix a few years after that. And so I've had the opportunity of living in, smaller towns in Arizona, spending a lot of time around the state as I was building Camp Outdoors, our summer camp program, and then being here. And so I've really seen shifts and changes in policy and policymaking.
Yeah, totally. When you think about your work at 1 in 10 right now, what feels the most meaningful or most alive for you in this season?
Well, that is really hard to answer. I have a job where I get to do a lot of different things. So I definitely get to help kind of co organize or organize alongside youth spaces where they're able to share their voices. So that is always one of the top for me, creating opportunities for young people to be able to speak with, whether it's their family members, their friends, their teachers, their elected officials, and be able to share who they are and what message they want to get across. That's something I feel very honored to do every single day. Any opportunity I have to work directly with our young folks and get to know them and hear their stories is always wonderful. Supporting our staff members who are doing a lot more of the direct service work with our youth than I am these days is always a really great time for me as well.
Okay, so let's just go back real quick to Prescott. You're up there and you're thinking, what did you want to go to school for? Like what was the original? Because being a guy, like I could see you totally opening up like an outdoor touring company and like just doing that, like and
Sure.
just being in nature all day long.
Yeah, so I went to Prescott College to do my last like 2-ish years of college. And I had really two areas that I was really focused on when I started going there. One was outdoor adventure education, so the same
Yep.
kinds of things that we're talking about. And the other one was really social justice based around creating equitable spaces, right, for LGBTQ communities and communities who are historically disenfranchised or discriminated against. And so
Mhm.
when I was graduating from Prescott College, I was doing my senior project and I created what later became Camp Outdoors. So it's now one of our largest LGBT summer camps in the country, and I think probably the longest running, if not close to that. So we're actually in our 19th year now.
Oh,
Next year, we'll be celebrating 20 years of that program. And it's completely free for any youth who want to attend. And we have folks come from all over the country and other countries as well. So I think what originally drew me to the school was the outdoor education programs, but what I found when I got there was that my past experience in helping organize like gender and sexuality alliances, GSAs, things like that as a young person, I was able to bring that into my school and help kind of run those things at my college as well as do that outdoor education. And there still are, but there definitely were more then, a lot of barriers for LGBTQ folks in the outdoors, right? It's not as simple for a lot of people as just going outside. When you think about inequities that come up about being able to afford gear, being able to find a summer camp that is supportive of LGBT folks, specifically trans folks, right? Those are barriers that come up for young people. So a big passion for me was how do I create outdoor programs and then a summer camp that would create a space where LGBTQ youth could really come together, build community, and develop their leadership skills. And so that was really born out of Prescott College, not just from me, although yes, I'm the founder of it, but like thousands of people who came together to pour their ideas and hearts into it over the years.
I love it so much. I mean, I have friends who volunteer. My friend Sarah Paulson, she does it. Kara Paulson, not Sarah, but yeah, Kara.
Yeah.
And then
Kara.
she's awesome. And she just always just shares it and all sorts of fun stuff. But do you want to bring this? I feel like it's really missing or lacking across the whole country. Is there a way to broaden this? Is this something that's on your radar for your roadmap for the next 5-year plan?
Always considerations, right? And so right now we focus on bringing youth from other states to Arizona. Our summer camp, as well as all of our programs at 1 in 10 are 100% free. That's my favorite price. I don't want to charge young folks for being able to access these types of programs. So we really focus on getting sponsors and donors and foundations that help pay for it. So right now that's been our focus, is getting young folks here to Arizona to come to our camp programs. To be determined in the future as to what that looks like. We have different programs at 1 in 10 that really focus on supporting young folks. So camp is definitely one of many.
I could totally just envision in the moment, you creating sort of a certificate program that people have to go through, like a university, of that. And I can imagine that would just change so many people's lives. But I can also imagine how much goes into facilitating, because how many camps do you put on in the year?
Yeah, so we have 4 main camp programs right now, 2 summer sessions of Camp Outdoors that are happening in July, a trans and non-binary retreat that's in November. So that's exclusively for trans, non-binary, and gender expansive youth. All of the staff and volunteers also reflect those identities. And then in November, we have our Together in Color retreat. So that's all for Black, Indigenous people of color, staff, and volunteers who also match those identities. And so we have 4 sessions. And then in addition to that, we have a program that is more similar to a scouting program that operates throughout the year. So we do things like take young people backpacking, we'll go kayaking, learn wilderness survival skills. So a lot of different stuff there. But not everything we do is, driving up to Flagstaff or out to Joshua Tree. Sometimes it's, hey, let's do a more accessible hike over at South Mountain where we're on the paved path, right? Because we're also looking at how do we create programs that are really accessible to get everybody outdoors so that there's a range of things people can choose from, because not everyone's going to be able to take off 3 days of work potentially to go on the backpacking trip, or physically it might not be in someone's ability to do. So we're really looking at, and my camp team does a great job of this, finding ways to create those opportunities for young people to get involved, even in things like environmental education classes that we might run at one of our satellite sites at 1 in 10.
Mm-hmm. I love that, because some kids, it's just getting them out once and having a really successful day will get them curious and actually get them excited to join up again, rather than hey, we're all meeting up and now we're going to go do 7 miles and you're going to be dead at the end of the day. And now you're not going to ever want to come back with us again. So I like the ability idea of I love nature.
One example is about 2 weeks ago, I co-led with a couple of my staff members a dispersed camping trip up on the Mogollon Rim, right? So we're able to drive there, keep the vehicle there, but there were no, showers, restrooms, facilities, and things like that. So that was the ability to say, okay, we still can bring our coolers with our ice and food in it and things like that, but also we're teaching skills like how to build a fire, how to bear bag, how to cook outside, things like that, so people can get used to it. And 2 of the young people on the trip, they shared, they're like, hey, this has been incredible and amazing to me, because most of my friends are online, right? And I don't have the ability to really get to know people as much. So sometimes getting people together, in an area where we have 1 bar of service, if that, and having those conversations, right, is that opportunity to have folks build those bridges, build those connections, because it's great to have online friends. It's also great to have some in person, right? So building that social connection.
Oh, completely. There's nothing better than conversation around a campfire that you built.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's so much goodness in that. So what have you guys, what have young people taught you about what it truly means to feel safe, seen, and supported?
So much. I mean, I started Camp Outdoors when I was 22, so I was still within really the age range of our young folks. Our young folks right now are ages 11 to 24. And when they
Okay.
turn 25, they age up out of our programs, meaning they could potentially become a volunteer in the future and things like that. I've spent a good portion of my life working alongside youth and staff and volunteers at the organization. And it's really been just like such an incredible honor for me because I'm constantly pushed uh, to continue evolving my thinking, right, and also find ways to help young people figure out, who they are and connect them to resources so that they can get the support that they need. So I would say they consistently help me reflect.
I love
One of
that.
the things one of our former staff members used to always say is, you can't be it if you can't see it, right? So this idea that a lot of times our volunteers and staff and our older folks in our community help hold up this mirror, right? If you didn't have that person on TV, like a lot of us didn't when we were younger, that reflected our identity,
Mhm.
it might have taken longer. It might have been harder to come out, whether that's to yourself, whether that's to a friend, or on the internet to the whole world. Um, and I think that's true for a lot of our staff members and volunteers and community supporters, is that sometimes we see young people, sharing their identities and terms that might feel newer to people. And they think like, oh, you know what, that actually kind of fits me too. I might identify with that term. And so I think as much as, 25-plus-year-old adults that we teach our young people, they teach us just as much, right?
Yeah,
And how to be authentic, how to be yourself, how to be out and proud, whether that's to one person or to.
I love that. What does it take to build spaces where people do not have to perform who they are, but can simply just be?
Yeah, I love this question. From my experience, it's creating alongside people, right? So as a
Mhm.
youth serving organization, it's important that we center our young people in our decision making, in our conversations, and that they're a part of the process as much as possible. I think with Camp Outdoors and our youth center and our satellite sites across the state, we've done a really good job of that, right? Checking in with young people about what they want and then holding space for them. So we have staff members and volunteers that facilitate programs, but really what we do is we hold the space and we help kind of keep the guidelines up. One of the things that was around when I started at 1 in 10 years ago, I think we had 2 or 3 staff members when I started at the organization. Now we have over 50. But we had our safe space guidelines, right? Which is a really common term now that you hear for folks. But I can tell you, 18 years ago, you didn't hear that very often. And our safe space guidelines were created by our young folks, and they've evolved over the years by our young folks. And those are really, I would say, our guiding principles, our kind of North Star of 1 in 10 is everything we're doing fitting within our safe space guidelines. And those are things, some real fun ones like don't yuck my yum. We've had that forever, right? So if someone likes pineapple on their pizza and you absolutely hate it, Michelle, like you're not going to put it down. You're going to be like, I agree to disagree, right? And so when we think of safe
I'm
space,
on the pineapple train though. I love
all day.
pineapple.
I'm on the
Yeah.
pineapple train. You can put pineapples on it, mushrooms on it, onions on it, ranch all
Yes.
over it. I'll eat all of that at one time on the same pizza. But when we think about safe spaces, right, like that term is thrown around so much by folks, I think, where it's
It
like, we have a
is.
safe space. To me, what I've seen is that you don't have a safe space unless you have governing agreements that people have come up with together to say, like, this is what it
Mhm.
means to be in our safe space, right? At 1 in 10, we have a call it in kind of mind frame. So instead of calling somebody out and like making them feel, like you did something wrong, it's that assuming positive intent while owning our impact and calling someone in to say, like, hey, let's have a conversation about that. Or that broke our safe space guideline of X, Y, and Z. Let's talk about it. So we really try to do that like restorative, reparative work as much as possible. But to have a safe space, I mean, you have to have folks in it who are willing to have hard conversations, to hold themselves accountable, and to also want to have a good time, and celebrate together.
with anybody listening today, because I am getting a lot of notes from parents now, who are dealing with not I don't want to say it in a negative tone, but they're all of a sudden coming to the understanding that their child falls under the queer umbrella. What's interesting is my mom, being a boomer, she felt that queer, using the term queer, was derogatory. And I said, not anymore. It isn't. It's really just describing, instead of having to say LGBTQ plus or 2S, LGBT, and all the, instead of adding, I said, it's beautiful right now because it's this beautiful rainbow umbrella that we can now just sort of use the term queer to, like sort of lead with that. Do you feel the same in that sense, or,
I think the more letters, the better, right? So for me,
Yes.
when we add letters onto the LGBTQ alphabet, I think it's great because it's giving that opportunity for more visibility for folks, right? So
Yeah.
we're saying like two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual. I can go on and on and on, right? Like it's important that we have those letters because I think it's giving a space for folks, right? To say like, hey, we see you and we recognize you and you're valid, right? Queer, I think, is also a great term because I do think it's a good umbrella term. So I'm always for more words than less because I think that gives more visibility. I have a lot of conversations with folks also, especially when we do trainings and things out in the community where they say really similar to like you said, like, oh, well, I didn't think queer was a word we could use, right? And so I also think it's important to respect that there are folks who are a part of the LGBT community who don't like the word queer, and that's okay,
Yes.
right? So I think it's always context. If I have someone say like, "Ooh, I don't want the word queer used for me," that's fine. What word would you like used? Right? And I
Yeah.
think sometimes people overcomplicate it by thinking like, "Oh, I have to use exactly, I can only use queer for this person, not this person." Just ask, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, what term would you like me to use? And I think
Yeah.
people will tell you who they are.
Yeah. I think it's a great opportunity for that kind of a conversation, and it allows for vulnerability too. It's like, hey, I want to know you and obviously want to call you by how you feel seen and heard, in that
Absolutely.
space.
Yeah, and we
It's
have a lot of parents who are on different parts of their journey, right? Maybe their own personal journey, but also their journey with their children. And so,
Mhm.
we have folks, like I said, that are young as 11. We have people reach out to us before they're 11, parents of young folks, and we have folks that are in the young adult range. And a lot of my conversations with young people too, when they're dealing with frustrations with their parents or their guardians around their identity, is if they're supportive and they're trying, right, they may not have the right language, they may not fully get it. But a lot of times, my conversation with folks is, well, your parents probably didn't go to school learning how to be the best LGBT ally. So, in what ways do you feel comfortable either connecting them to our parents group so we can help them learn that, or giving them resources? Like, in what way can we support you? Because what we find a lot of the time, especially with parents engaged with 1 in 10, is they want to support their young person and they're also on their own journey, right? So just as we come out once or 100 times or a million times in our
Mhm.
life,
That's right.
parents they're on a journey too, right? It might not be on the exact same wavelength that we're on in it, but they're still on a journey. And for me, it's like if a parent or guardian or a family member is wanting to be supportive, they're wanting to learn, they're wanting to move forward. Those are all really good signs, you know?
I agree. I mean, it's a fascinating journey, and it's like when I came to grips with the fact that every moment I literally walk out the door, it's Lesbian Visibility Day for me. It's like, I can't
Great
really,
day. Great day.
yeah, it's exactly, it just is. So, where are you currently feeling stretched or challenged as a leader right now?
Um, Well, we have over
Yeah.
100 programs a month at 1 in 10 at
Wow.
22 different sites, which is incredible, the work that our staff and volunteers and our young folks do in the community. And, I mean, particularly with our current government administration, I think we both know, and everyone listening probably knows, it's incredibly difficult for LGBTQ youth and LGBTQ adults right now, right? So I think where um, the organization and where we feel stretched is often when these things are coming out like executive orders or laws, and they're just kind of like coming out so fast
Mhm.
that there's so many organizations around the country that are working together that are LGBT organizations to figure out how to fully understand what they mean, which ones are laws, which ones are not, right? How to be responsive to them, but ultimately how to best support young people and how to help them be the advocates for themselves and help their family members do that. So I think to answer your question of where do we feel stretched thin, I don't know if it's stretched thin, but I would say that's where like the biggest challenge is coming from right
I
now, is
agree.
having
I
a
mean, I
system that
agree with
isn't
you.
really
Probably
supportive.
that's, yeah. I mean, I don't have to work at a nonprofit to understand like where we're probably all stretched. What would you want most for people listening today to understand about these kids who walk through the door? Like, where are they most misunderstood in your eyes?
So we do this annual survey every year at 1 in 10, and it's towards the end of the year, and it's asking them about their experiences in the community in Arizona, as well as all of our programs at the organization. Done this survey for well over a decade, I'm sure. And one of the questions we ask, it's my favorite question, is like, what is the top reason you come to 1 in 10? And the top three answers really recently have been the same for the past several years. The first number one reason is always that youth are coming to 1 in 10 to build community and to make friends, right? LGBTQ youth are youth. First and foremost, they want
Right. They're just kids.
to meet friends, they want to hang out, they want to have people to connect with, right? To build that community. Their community happens to be the LGBT community, but it's also intersectional, right? There's so many communities within our community. So a lot of our young people, that's what they're coming for, right? Is to build community. I think a lot of times folks think like, oh, LGBT youth go to an organization for this specific reason. Yeah, some do, but overwhelmingly it's because they want to build community. The second two things that have come up really recent for reasons that youth come to 1 in 10 is to build social skills, which I think is incredible that young people are speaking about that. I don't remember people talking about social skills when I was young. Maybe my memory is just bad there,
There's
but
so much
you know,
that they should be talking about in starting in
yeah,
fifth grade nowadays. But well,
right. To be able to verbalize, like, hey, I want to build my social skills. That's so healthy. That's such an incredible thing
beautiful.
to want to do. And then self-esteem is the other one, is building tools, finding tools and building their self-esteem. So young people come to us to build community, right? Build self-esteem and develop those social skills. So yes, we're an LGBT organization, but we're a youth serving organization, right? And when young people are coming to our organization, our job as supportive adults and staff members is to listen and to
Mhm.
support them. It's not to tell them what to think, who to be, how to act, right? It's to listen to them
It's
and
like
help
one of the
them.
first times in their life they don't have to do all that. They don't have to
Yeah.
perform anymore.
Yeah. When we think about, like, you might hear sometimes folks say, like, oh, well, we empower youth. I think that the only way you can, like, truly empower is to empower yourself and have people who help build community around you, right? So I think that, like, self-empowerment is much richer than this idea of, like, I, Kado, am going to go empower somebody. No, I'm helping folks, like, get the resources, get the tools, build the community to feel empowered themselves. And so
Well, it
I
also,
really think that's what we do here at 1 in 10 is create that.
yeah, I mean, if anyone is in the area and wants to even go have a tour of 1 in 10, they're very open to like allowing people to come in and check it out. I think the place is so beautiful in the way of like
Thank you.
you can really see like each portion of the spaces, and even in the closet is so cool that the kids
Yeah.
can go in if they need something, that it's there. What else, what do you guys need right now? What's top of list, so that if anyone's listening that's local, which we do get a lot of those listeners, I'd love to help spread that a little bit.
Yeah, we have a lot of ways for folks to get engaged depending on their ability to give, right? So lots of different ways you can give. One, becoming a volunteer. So we're always looking for program volunteers. Those are folks that generally dedicate one night a week for about 4 hours, either to our youth center or our satellite programs, which are across the state. We can maybe talk about those in a minute. And they, I think, have one of the most important roles because they're actually spending time with our staff members and our young people, helping create that safe space for youth, maybe leading programs if somebody has a special skill, lot of people love to knit right now. We have a lot of folks who are into birding, lots of cool different opportunities if folks have special skills there. So becoming a program volunteer is always an opportunity. Donating to the organization, being a part of our Hero Circle, which is our monthly sustaining giving program. That starts at $25 a month. That's always an option, as well as donating. And then throughout the year, we have opportunities for folks to either attend our special events that are coming up, as well as donate clothing items when we need them. So we do have a gender affirming clothing closet. That is a space where young people, to your point, can come in and find, maybe a dress that they want to try on and keep because they don't feel safe or comfortable going to Kohl's and trying one on, right? For various reasons. Or they can come in and get a business suit because maybe they have a job interview and they want to make sure they look sharp. There's a lot of different ways for folks to get involved. I would say first thing you could do if you're interested is, connect with us on 1in10.org, check out our website, look on that volunteer or donate tab. That'll give you an idea of all the different ways to get involved. And then from there, it will connect you to my staff member that can help you really see what would be the best fit.
Yeah, and you have some great people there. Talk about the satellite program. I know you want to.
Yeah, well, I've talked about camp a lot. I'll always talk about outdoors, but I really want to talk about our satellite programs too, because, when I started with 1in10 many years ago, the main program was here in Central Phoenix, and Camp Outdoors started up in Northern Arizona. And so as Camp Outdoors grew, we were getting young people from around the state. I spent a lot of my initial years of camp, and this is before I worked for 1in10, working on doing outreach. So I would literally drive around the state in my pickup truck, and I would go to community organizations and tell people about camp and say like, hey, does your community organization and your young folks want to come up to camp? And so we got youth from all over the state, right? From Flagstaff, from Yuma, from Show Low, from Tucson, all kinds of areas. And as youth came to camp over the years, they said like, I want to have a 1in10 program in my community. So our first initial satellite sites actually started in Tempe and Mesa and then grew from there. And so we have 22 sites right now across the state and a partnership site in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. And I'd like to talk about it because it brings access to young folks who don't have our big youth center in Central Phoenix, right? And being from a smaller town and living in mostly rural or small city areas before I lived here, it's really something I'm passionate about and my satellite team's passionate about, because a lot of those folks, they may have a supportive family member or supportive friends or teachers, but they don't necessarily have access to resources. This gives young people a one-time a week positive space in their community where they can come get resources, spend time with other young folks, and really have that kind of satellite version of our youth center in their community. So there's always opportunities there. And we're always looking for volunteers at our satellite sites because it tends to be a little harder to find volunteers maybe in Show Low than it does in Phoenix.
I love Show Low. My parents used to have a little place up there. It's so fun. So when the weight of the work, this work feels heavy, other than outdoor and fishing, what helps you stay grounded in your purpose?
I'm a person of a million hobbies, so I will tell you, outdoors and fishing are some of them, but I have a lot of hobbies. I think, for me as a young person, when I was like 16 and coming out and going through that, I made a choice when I was going through some tough times in my life that I wanted to stay here and make a difference, right? And so for me, it's always been kind of the opportunity to look back at my younger self and say like, hey, as hard as things are right now, I can make a difference maybe for one person, because I know one person that's made a difference for me, right? And so being able to be a part of that change has kept me motivated. My answer to this question has changed over the years, I think, as my role has changed, my experience has changed. But what really ultimately keeps me motivated is seeing our young people who grow and change over time and find that positive support in their life, right? When we have some of our young folks who are maybe coming to us at 10, 11 years old and they're going through the hardest things you can imagine, right? To then see them at 22 years old, being folks who are then mentoring other 18-year-olds or 19-year-olds and teaching them how to build community is really cool. Because I've been at 1 in 10 so long, I've known some people who are 11 and now are staff members or volunteers of the organization, and they're
So
over 25. So I feel like I've had a really unique view. So what keeps me motivated is just looking at people's faces and seeing the joy on their face, or seeing them when they're having the hardest day, to then be able to say, you know what, this is the hardest day, but I'm still going to take a moment and do something that makes me feel good, right? Practicing that like self advocacy, that self care. For them, it might be like playing a video game, and that's the one thing they did that day. That's a big thing for me with our young folks and staff, is like, what's something you can do every day that's like filling your cup, no matter how hard of a day it is, right? And there's so much negativity going on in the world and so many challenges that we're facing, and two things can be true at once. That's all happening and we're dealing with all of that, and we still deserve to like have some joy. So wherever we can find that, even if we have to really pull it out one day, I think it's important.
I
I'm
love
also
that.
an optimist all the time, so I'm always focusing that way.
The glass is always half full in Kato's head.
Yeah, that's a part of sustaining over time, I think, when you're doing these types of work, right? Is finding ways to, yes, like deal with the really difficult stuff, and we're not going to wash over it because it is really challenging, but also finding ways to like appreciate one another, find that joy in community, and do something that makes you feel good.
Yeah, I think we can always take 5 minutes in the day and find something to sit in gratitude about, right? And be
Yeah.
grateful. And
It
also
can
in the
help
same
kind of
5 minutes,
rewire
finding
the spiraling bad feelings.
totally. Yeah. I mean, yeah, connecting with yourself as well. And also, having compassion for others and others' experiences, I think, can provide that. So when you think about your impact over time, what do you hope people feel differently because of the spaces you have helped create?
I think, for me, it's really thinking about how we're building bridges, right? That we're all more alike than people expect. And so for me, as somebody who's, transgender, like going to a lot of the spaces I do, oftentimes I'm the only person, at least in most of the spaces, I'm the only
Mhm.
person sometimes in that room or at that table. And so I sit in conversations with folks that have very different opinions from me.
Mhm.
I don't think that anybody should have to educate anyone else on their identity. And I do think that for me, I'm comfortable doing that in a way of trying to help create space for others, right? So that is something that I think that I'm proud of being able to do. Yeah, and I think that's a piece of, you know, kind of creating space, is making it a little bit easier for young people to be able to be in some of these different spaces.
Yeah, I love that. So are you ready for a little fun rapid fire?
Yes, I love fun. This is great.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Are you like coffee all day?
This is water in my cup, I'll have you know, but it was almost coffee. So
It's almost coffee. What do you put
coffee,
in your
I drink
coffee?
it black or with one sugar.
Oh, nice. Okay. Sunrise or sunset in Arizona?
Both. But if I have to pick one, it's sunrise, because when I go fishing,
Fishing.
I
I
like to be
knew
there an
I
hour
knew it was
before
all
the
going to lead
sunrise.
to fishing. Yeah, the
Well,
sunrise
and
is
even my
smart.
cup, even my cup. So, um, yeah, I like to be there before sunrise so that I can see that happen.
Yeah, I'm a huge sunrise person too. I love being on top of South Mountain at sunrise. It's like one of my
Also,
favorite places to be. Yeah, it's beautiful. A song that always shifts your energy in a good way.
oh, ooh, this one's gonna be really hard for me. Um, I like country, a lot of
Okay.
country, as long as
Yeah.
it's LGBTQ affirmative singers and things. So there's an artist named Nico Moon that I like a lot. He has a lot of really just good upbeat music. So I would say something by him.
Okay. I like that. I'll have to look him up. One word your friends would use to describe you.
Adventurous.
Yeah, it's a good one. A place that feels like home to you.
Ooh, the Chugach Mountains in Alaska.
I'm wondering, is there an opportunity for you to do a camp outdoor in Alaska or
There's
create a,
always opportunity.
there's
So
always opportunity. We're
TBD.
we're
The world
saying
is
it
out
out
there.
loud. I love that. Something recently that made you unexpectedly smile.
Um, hmm. Unexpectedly, I would say, um, just like getting time to fish with my dad this past weekend. Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean,
It was a
I guess
really
it's an
beautiful
expected
post.
smile, but he did some funny things that made me laugh. So,
I'm glad that you enjoy your dad because I lost mine in 2020. He was one of my closest friends.
yeah,
And even though he voted for the other side, he and I still managed to like have a great relationship. So I really appreciate when people are out there enjoying their fathers because it's that time is so priceless. And then
yeah.
my last question to you, what does living out loud mean to you?
I think living out loud means being true to yourself, right? And there's no exact right way to do that. It's different for everybody, right? And so for some folks, they may be in a career or have a community or a friend circle where they can be out with all of their identities, right? For other folks, it might just be for themselves, right? They might only be able to share their gender identity or their sexual orientation with themselves or trusted friends, right? Because there's safety considerations to
Yes.
think of. And so to me, living out loud is being true and authentic to yourself, and also knowing that that's a journey, right?
Mhm.
That I don't think it's a destination personally. I think there's always a journey to be on, and I always think like it's a big adventure. So that's something that I think about is who will I be in 5 years from now? Who will I be in 10 years from now? And who will my friends, my family, and the people around me be? And I think that's exciting. So I think living out loud is being true to yourself, and hopefully being open to continuing to evolve.
Yeah, I think the evolution of ourselves is number one, and also knowing and giving ourselves compassion for the previous past selves of us too, right?
But
It's
yeah,
so
and sometimes
important.
that's
And
hard work.
it is. And I think teaching youth that is really valid at this point in life. Like having discussions around attachments and understanding what red flags and green flags are and how to communicate, on romantic levels. I think that's one thing like, I used to learn how, back in junior high, I'm old, but, typing and home ec, what home ec used to be, right? I'm waiting for home ec to evolve into like more of this emotionally intelligent, emotional, pieces. But I think across the country with all of, like 1 in 10 and these other organizations who are doing so good, I feel like we're finally able to have those conversations with the youth. And I mean, I think we're bringing up like their most amazing, generations are yet to come. I think it's just becoming better and better for them, for us to learn from.
Everybody needs to listen to young people more, right? Just young people in general, because they have such good ideas. They see things so openly and so differently. And I think we all would be benefited. I know I have from just listening to what young folks have to say and taking it seriously. You know,
Agreed. Kado, thank you for all the work you do. I know it takes a village, so thank you for everyone who volunteers and is on, and is employed by 1 in 10. Just really appreciate you being out there in the world. It's fantastic and
yeah.
so great. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy, hectic day, and I appreciate that.
It was great to talk to you more. Thanks for having me, and thanks for creating this space so people can learn about so many people and organizations and themselves.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
If you liked this episode, please hit the follow button and remember, sharing is caring. Until next week, stay proud, stay loud.